Welcome to 805 Sports Talk. We got another big show planned for you guys this week. Our lead story for this week, though, is Santa Maria High School baseball. The Saints have qualified for the CIF playoffs for the first time in about 11 years. That's right, the Saints haven't made the playoffs since 2004, but last week they swept Templeton in a two-game set, qualifying for the playoffs. And it's really a great story when you think about all the things the Saints have gone through. They lost a player from last year's team, Ivan Nunez. It was a big news story. He went missing around Christmas time last year. They found his body in March, and the police ruled it as suicide, so the Saints have been playing through that. He was a large part of the team. Ivan was a good friend to a lot of the teammates, and talking to them this week, you know, they've really kind of played for him, and I caught up with Coach Gerald Schaefer, leadoff man, Isaiah Garcia, who was really close friends with Ivan Nunez, and Tristan Gutierrez is a senior on the team, so I caught up with those guys. They talked about what it was like playing through everything, all the turmoil, and what it was like to break that drought and qualify for the playoffs.
So I'm here with the Santa Maria High baseball coach, Gerald Schaefer. The Saints last week swept Templeton in a two-game set and clinched a playoff berth. So the Saints are going to the playoffs for the first time since 2004. With that being said, with it being a fact now that you guys are in the playoffs, how's that feel with this group that you have here?
It feels really good. Some of the guys been with me, for 3 years, and we've laid some foundations to get where we wanted to be and to finally get to there. To get over that hump and get in the playoffs is huge. To just be competitive. Santa Maria, we've not had the greatest team in a while, and we've slowly got to where we want to be, to just competing to extend our season. And that's what everybody wants to do. And so it feels good. The kids are seeing their hard work pay off. We've spent time this fall in the weight room, and so we've seen the improvements as a team, and so it's been real good.
Yeah, just how much work has been put into this program over that time. You talk about the last 3 years. You guys have seemed like you guys have steadily been improving, and here you guys are, with the good league record, clinch a playoff spot. How much work and how much time have you and the guys put into it to make this happen?
It's the whole program, the coaching staff, the players. When we first got it, there were some things that we had to kind of buy into. We really were, for the first year, to learn how to get outs, play catch is what we call, and make the other team play fast catch as we call it. And then this past year we've been able to even now focus more towards the offensive side, and we've seen a lot of improvements on that, and our coaches working with the hitters. And so long as we can play defense and our pitching keeps us in games, the offense have now been able to step up and kind of catch up to where we were last year in defense.
You guys learned of the passing of Ivan Nunez, who is a catcher on this team. It's a tragic story for what happened. I'm sure it's been an emotional year. How does that feel, knowing you guys made it to the playoffs, fighting through that, and I'm sure a lot of the guys have been playing for Ivan. Just how do you feel about that whole situation and how the team handled it?
It's just not our team, but our entire program was hurt by it and touched by it. It's created a lot of adversity off the field that you normally don't wish high schoolers to go through, or even a team or a program, from coaches as well as players. But they have rallied around it and picked each other up and been emotional support for each other, and that's been really big. And whether it's a kid in a classroom or a player on a field, there's nothing that can really get you ready for something like this, whether it's, like I said, at school related or just your family and your friends related. And so it's been really amazing to see the kids just come together and be a support system for each other, and that's been huge.
I'm with Santa Maria sophomore Isaiah Garcia, center fielder. He's hitting .506 on the season. You guys clinched a playoff berth for the first time since 2004 last week by beating Templeton twice. What was that like, finding out that you guys have clinched the playoffs for the first time in over a decade?
It was great, honestly, because, ever since, about Ivan, he was like my best friend. Ever since he found about that, we just started playing, good, great. We didn't want to lose. We weren't like we were last year. We didn't really care. But this year, ever since, it feels really great because Ivan last year, he wanted to make CIF really bad, and just feels really great this year because I promised him. And his parents too, just feels really great.
Has that really had an impact on the team? Do you guys think about that a lot? Is he kind of with you guys every game? Just talk about the actual impact that has on you guys.
Yes, he's there every game. He before every time we go on that field or to hit, we always pray, and he's always watching us from up there. He's helping us out, make sure we don't put our heads down, working as a team. That's all he wanted. He was like, when he was here, he was like the best guy. He motivated us. He would pick us up. He was just amazing.
What do you think has improved with the team on the field? Has there been, has it been pitching, defense, you guys at the plate, just better coaching? What do you think got you guys to this spot?
Well, we've been just working hard every practice and pretty much just improving ourselves, trying to get faster, stronger, build each other as a team, push each other. That's pretty much it.
Okay. And this team has a funny kind of makeup to it because there's so many youngsters on the team. Tommy's a catcher who's a freshman. Isaiah's a sophomore. Trevor's a sophomore. Blake Truitt's a sophomore. And here you are, the senior. Do you feel like you're kind of the elder of the team? Do you kind of try to bring a little senior leadership to this team? How do you feel about being a senior with so many young top players on this team?
It feels like you give them a chance to see how fast the varsity level is and see I pretty feel like I'm old now seeing them.
Okay, and you talk a little bit about the difference that varsity level of baseball is. Are you surprised at all with the way the team is so young, but they seem like they can handle the varsity level of baseball so well? How do you feel about the youngsters playing so well?
I think it's a great experience for them because it gets them ready for a higher level if they make it.
Okay. And talking to Isaiah and Trevor and Coach Schaefer, a lot of them talked about Ivan Nunez, who passed away last year. He's not a member of this team. It seems like it's motivated a lot of the guys to kind of make the playoffs. How do you feel about that and kind of playing for Ivan?
It makes me work harder. He's been with us. Even when he's not here on this earth, he's still with us in spirit.
Jacob, you had a big week in Lompoc. On Tuesday, Cabrillo's baseball team actually clinched the LPL title. But Cabrillo Sports was in the news for another reason. Gary West announced his official resignation last week. Can you kind of get us up to speed on what happened there?
Yeah, we've told you a while ago we were done talking about basketball in the area, but we unexpectedly returned to basketball news when Gary West resigned on last Thursday. It ended a really successful run of basketball. His time at Cabrillo included 6 LPL championships, including 5 in a row. And I only got to cover that team and him this season, so I did not get to know the program or him all that well. But, his time at Cabrillo included several controversial off-the-court issues that his supporters, I feel, always felt like were a little bit overblown. And I think part of it was he has a very intense on-court coaching style. And I think people who saw that were always kind of quick to make judgments. And without knowing the full details of the bizarre events that happened this season when he was fired before their first big rivalry game with Lompoc and then reinstated less than 2 weeks later, only kind of added to the feeling I think many had about him. But like I said, because I don't know the full details and no one does, because the district athletic director Dan Troop and Gary West himself don't want to elaborate on what happened this season. But what it comes down to is his players, many of whom have spoken about Gary as someone they respected as a father figure, and he built a really successful basketball program. And now Cabrillo has to move on and find his replacement. So that adds a twist to the athletics off-season in the Lompoc Valley, but there's still plenty of sports going on right now, and Cabrillo baseball ended kind of a drought of their own. They are an incredibly successful local baseball program, but they won their first LPL title since 2011, and they did so on the strength of a great pitching staff. This pitching staff has a less than 2-point team ERA, and it's led by Philip Martin and Izzy Hernandez, and then Benji Gonzalez is their closer, and Dylan Maiden comes in as a power arm. And it's a group that, if you're a Dodgers fan of old, you would know kind of the idea of going to a Cabrillo baseball game is hope for getting a couple of runs and then shut the other team down. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they do on a CIF run. And it's been an incredibly competitive LPL baseball season, and for them to have had such a successful year in that league is really impressive. Lompoc and San Ynez were nipping on their heels, and then you had Santa Maria, the much improved Saints, who Kenny actually got to cover more than I did, and Kenny can elaborate a little bit more on the great job that the Saints did this season.
Yes, I think Coach Gerald Schaefer, I think, is one of the most unsung coaches in the area. Before, I have covered several of their games in recent years, and it had always seemed as though they played well for the balance of the game. But there was 1 or 2 innings where they just would not play well, and it would take them out of it. And last couple of years, they have seemed to avoid that. This year they finally walked in the door. They were real close to getting in last year, but just missed. But now 2004, I covered that game that they won the league championship and made it to the playoffs. I ran into Scott Nixon, who coached that team, and he remembered every detail of that game. But anyway, it could not have been much more dramatic. Cabrillo had the bases loaded, no one out. Santa Maria's ace, Bobby Farrell, was on the hill. Cabrillo was 1 run down, and Bobby pitched out of it. As Scott pointed out, Bobby went to a 3-ball count on 3 straight batters, and they all popped out. I believe the Santa Maria catcher caught a foul pop for the last out. I'm not sure. I think that was how it went. But anyway, I remember I interviewed the very happy Santa Maria side first. Then I went over to Cabrillo coach Jonathan Osborne, who, as Jacob pointed out, guided his team to an outright LPL title this year. Anyway, as I'm interviewing the Santa Maria people, I noticed John is standing in front of the Cabrillo dugout staring straight ahead. I come up to him, and he's still staring straight ahead. And before I get my first question out, John says, "I feel like my heart's been ripped out of me." I mean, that's the type, I know a loss is a loss and a win is a win, but I think that's the kind of game, whichever side of the result you're on, it sticks with you for a while. But that was, to this day, that was one of the more dramatic sports moments that I remember since I've been here.
You know, that was an exciting baseball game, Kenny. It was an exciting season, and so many times we see the Saints have trouble competing, and it's always great to see them. You know, you don't want to root for any one team because we root for all the teams and all the kids to do well, but it was really great to see Santa Maria win in such a dramatic fashion. It really kind of put an exclamation point on a really good season. And our assistant sports editor, Joe Bailey, he was still a student at Santa Maria High School back then. So he's come a long way since then, going to Fresno State and coming back home, but I'm sure he remembers those days very well because he stuck it out when he could have bailed and gone over to Pioneer Valley as that school was opening up. He stayed at his alma mater, St. Joe, and finished there. Now, we also had, this past week, we had track and field wrapped up. And it was fun. You and I, Kenny, have been going to the different league meets the last few years. And I go up to Atascadero, you go to the Los Padres League, I go up to the Memorial Stadium in Atascadero to watch the Pac-8 League. And, you know, the one event they don't have at the league track championships is the marathon. What the marathon is for those of us that have to cover it, because it goes on for hours. It is the longest event, but it also takes place all over the football stadium. So what in the fall is the football field is where all the field events are. So they've got the high jump going on over here, and the triple jump here, and the long jump here, and the discus here, and the shot put here, and the pole vault there, and they're all going on simultaneously. And outside the track, outside the football field, is the track where all the races are going on. And these kids enter up to 4 different events, and some of them, like C.J. Cole from St. Joe, he qualified for the CIF in 4 different events. But they're going on, you're at the high jump, and you're waiting for, like, Blake Jacobs from St. Joe to do his high jump, and where did Blake Jacobs go? Well, he had to go over with Al Garcia and the guys in the long jump. So now you've got to wait for him to go there, or you can chase him. And if you chase people down, you end up running a marathon over the course of the 6 or 7 hours that this thing takes. But it was really exciting. St. Joe's High School, their 4x100 team, opened the meet with a school record that won the Pac-8 championship and gets the 4 kids on that team into the CIF. And one of those was C.J. Cole, who ran the anchor leg, Michael Powers, who qualified in a couple of events, Fenton Will, and Cody Barnes. Cole qualified also in the 100. He won that. The 200, he came in second to Rigetti High School's Angel Placencia, and Placencia came in second to Cole's in the 100. And Cole's, he's not a big guy. He's a wide receiver on the football team, but he's not a big guy. He qualified in the shot put, which you kind of think of big, beefy guys with the shot put and the discus, but he's not that big, and he came in third and he qualified for CIF. Bradley Mickey, the kid from football that we all like so much as a running back for Arroyo Grande, he won the triple jump, and it was his first meet of the year. He credited Coach James Brown with teaching him the technique, but he hadn't competed all year, and the coach Brown talked him into it. And he came out and he won it, and there were some people that were upset, saying that they don't think a kid should be allowed to come out for just the championships, but the rules are the rules, and they're allowed to do that. In a high jump, Joel Bishop was the defending champion from Arroyo Grande with the 6'2", and he again hit a 6'2" this year, but it wasn't good enough to win. Now, Bishop was coming back off of knee surgery, so he hadn't competed very much at all. So he was a bit rusty, but he still hit a 6'2", which was good enough for the title last year. But he lost to his own teammate, a kid named Vince Kettler, a sophomore, who hit 6'4", and he's not a very big guy. And you see Vince Kettler on the sidelines, and you go, nah, he can't hit 6'4", and he made it look easy. He went up to try for 6'6", didn't make it, but he's a sophomore. He can only grow a little bit, and you could grow a lot. You never know with kids that age, but he can grow into the sport, and he should be able to hit it. There's a kid from San Luis Obispo High School named Callum Bolger that we've watched. We don't pay as much attention to north of Arroyo Grande, but this kid was just outstanding. He won all 3 of the boys' distance running events. That's the 800, 1600, which equates to the mile, and the 3200, that's like 2 mile, and he did it in one afternoon. That's 3.5 miles of racing, and nobody could catch him. Johnny Diaz from Pioneer Valley is going to the CIF, winning the 110 hurdles. He beat Blake Jacobs from St. Joe, and he nipped him by a lean. You've seen him do that lean at the wire? Well, he out-leaned Jacobs and beat him by 0.08 of a second to qualify. And then we had a couple of Arroyo Grande kids, Matt Sill and Alex Checky, and Checky, of course, was another one of those AG football players that came in first and second in the long jump. So it's a huge event. It's like a festival. The teams bring their tents and canopies. There's parents everywhere. I'm always impressed by the number of parents and friends and students that come out, because it's a 60-mile ride from Santa Maria for the Rigetti, Pioneer Valley, and St. Joe kids. I mean, it's not necessarily that long for Paso Robles and San Luis Obispo kids, but the families and friends come up, and the roars are just amazing. It's like you're in a big league stadium, and it's so much fun to cover. However, the one thing that isn't fun is the discus, because that went over 6.5 hours. That's an awful lot of discus throws before. But again, I mentioned it earlier. These kids would say, Coach, I can't do my next throw right now. I've got to go do the triple jump, or I've got to go do the high jump, or I've got to run the 110 hurdles or something, and they're gone. So it really delayed that event more than the others. But it was fun, and it's become a sort of a tradition for Kenny and I to go to the league finals, and I know he had fun at the LPL finals, and I always enjoy going to these and seeing the kids. And some of the kids that we used to cover are now the coaches, like Sam Schur from St. Joseph High School and Philip Adam from St. Joe. And then you get to catch up with the football coaches who also work in track, and some of the soccer coaches. And it's great to see how so many people support these kids in this sport. Kenny, I said you were at the Los Padres League Track and Field Championships. Why don't you give us a quick rundown of how that went?
I always have a lot of fun covering that event, and I enjoyed it a lot this year. I thought several athletes distinguished themselves. Jordan Dorado, I believe, is a top qualifier, or maybe the top qualifier for the Division III preliminaries for Napomo in the girls' shot put. Napomo just moved up to Division III from Division IV. They've sort of flip-flopped. They had been in Division III for a while. They went down to Division IV. This year they just moved back up to Division III. Emily Donahue, who is just a sophomore at San Ynez, had I thought, an impressive distance double, winning the 1600 and 3200 in a fairly stiff breeze. Natalia Tolik has distinguished herself as really one to watch in the jumps and the 200. Kimberly Deming from Cabrillo should be a leading pole vaulter. There are several athletes at the LPL who distinguish themselves, I thought, and are some to watch for the prelims. And I'm looking forward to the Division IV prelims at Carpentry this Saturday. It's a long meet, but the time moves really fast. It's a lot of fun to cover.
Yeah, Kenny, we know you love covering track, so this is probably your favorite time of year. We got the CIF Southern Section prelims, then the Masters and the finals, and then the state meet. So, but enough track talk. Let's switch it back to baseball a little bit. Elliott, you mentioned it earlier, the Santa Maria High baseball qualifying for CIF playoffs, and me going there. So yeah, it's pretty cool to see that as an alum. So that it's pretty near and dear to my heart. You know, seeing them make the playoffs, and it is crazy to think about that. I went to college and worked here for like the last 6 years, and they haven't made the playoffs in that time. So it kind of goes to show how long it's been since Santa Maria made the playoffs. I was a junior in high school. I can't even imagine how far back that was. You know, my junior year of college seems like old ancient history. So you know, it's cool to see them do that, and with all the turmoil that they kind of fought through is great. And you know, hopefully maybe they'll get a home playoff game in the playoffs. Maybe they'll win a couple playoff games. We'll see. But I think it's just a cool story, and it's good that as the school year kind of winds down, we get a cool story like that, you know. So I think it's pretty cool. You know, kind of keeping it with LPL baseball, Jacob, you've seen Cabrillo a lot this year, and most coaches will tell you the biggest thing in the playoffs is having that pitching. And you know, Philip Martin, Izzy Hernandez, and you mentioned Dylan Maiden as a power arm in the bullpen for them. Do you think Cabrillo can do some damage in these playoffs? They're in Division 5. San Ynez won a D5 title 3 years ago, I think it was. What do you think we can expect out of Cabrillo and maybe the LPL as a whole in these playoffs?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because if you have the pitching, really anything's possible. Because if your hitting just goes through a hot streak, but you've always had the pitching, then you can win 4 games and you can win a title. It's when I talked to Dylan Maiden after they secured the LPL title against Lompoc, he said the hitting has finally come around. It took a while. But what I think took a while for them was they had to figure out how to score runs with the guys they have. They're not going to hit double after double, big hits or anything like that. But they figured it out. I think the Conqs can make a run because of Philip Martin, because of Izzy Hernandez, because of Benji, because of Dylan even pitching. But more often than not this year, Phillips pitched a complete game.
Yeah.
That's pretty nice to have, when you're going into playoffs. And as far as the whole LPL, it's going to be really interesting. This is my first season here. I was really impressed with what Jim Allen did with the Lompoc Braves. You lose your top 6 guys on batting average from last year, and they came into the final week of the season with a chance to share the title. It wouldn't it wouldn't shock me if they won a couple of games in the CIF. I mean, Santa Maria, then of course there's always San Ynez, which is a really young group. It should be fun.
Yeah, and talking a little bit more about Cabrillo, when Santa Ynez won that title, I could see a lot of similarities between what Cabrillo has this year and what Santa Ynez had when Santa Ynez won. Santa Ynez had Zach Torra, a good lefty who threw like a complete game almost every time. I think he was a sophomore that year. They had Zach Snyder, kind of a senior guy. Can kind of see Philip Martin filling that role as a Zach Snyder kid, and they have some pieces on offense. So it's really interesting how those similarities are, and I think the expectations should be pretty high for Cabrillo once the playoffs start, because Division 5 I think is a good fit for those LPL teams. So it should be interesting to see how the LPL fares in these playoffs.
They do seem to be peaking at the right time as far as their hitting, the Conquistadors. They had, to be frank, they did struggle with their hitting for most of the year, but they are breaking through and scoring some runs now. So it is a good time. They do seem to be picking it up at just the right time.
And because of the change in their kind of schedule this year, they played a lot of LPL games. They won their 20th game. Their 20th win of the season secured them the LPL title. I think all but 3 or 4 of those wins are against LPL teams.
Yeah.
But this is the one year where that's not the one year, but this is a year where that's a really good thing, because you had San Ynez, Lompoc, and Santa Maria all playing really good baseball for the majority of the season. So to win that many games against LPL teams, that's a really good sign for Cabrillo.
John Osborne has said he believes that most of the team's schedule should consist of games against league teams.
Okay. And I know probably one of the happiest Conq fans is probably Danny Duffy. It was so weird last week. Out of the blue, he just texted me. He got his World Series ring, and then he was wondering how the Conqs were doing. He knew there was a big series against Lompoc coming up this week, and it was funny. He's in the middle of his season, pitching out of the bullpen in high-pressure situations, and there he is thinking about Cabrillo baseball. It was kind of funny. And he was right on top of it. He knew they were playing Lompoc, and he knew that was a big series. And we saw it on Tuesday with the Conqs coming out on top against Lompoc and clinching the league title. So it was funny to see Danny so interested in that in the middle of his season, and that was pretty cool. It shows you the kind of connection that a lot of people do have to their programs, and especially in a small town like Vandenberg or Lompoc. So it's always cool to see that.
You get fan letters every once in a while. People like to complain, but every once in a while people say some nice things about us and the things that we do. And one of the things is, and maybe this is where Duffy's getting it, is I got a couple recently where people thanked us for putting everything online because they don't live in the area. They can't get the physical newspaper delivered to them. So they are glad that they can go online and they know that the local coverage that we provide is going to be there. And I tell you, you look at the number of games that we talk to the coaches and provide the information. Online, the one thing that's beautiful about that is we don't have the space restrictions. So we can tell as much of the story as we can possibly get done. And so that could be where Duffy's seeing it, but there are people that contact me saying that it's great that we have it online. And of course, now that we're in the playoffs, and it's just not just the baseball, it's softball, tennis, golf, track and field, swimming and diving. There's lots of things still going on, and this will go on for a while. One of the things is we want every team and every kid to do well, but we don't root for St. Joe or Rigetti when they're facing each other in a Pac-8, or Lompoc or Cabrillo when their Valley rivals meet each other. But now's the time of year we root for the local kids to bring home CIF championships, because we'd love nothing more than putting on our front page and a big display on our website local kids win a championship. So we're rooting for everybody, and there's a lot of everybody's that start the championship chase. Only one of them can win it, but there are different divisions, so there could be more than one tennis champion, more than one baseball champion, more than one softball champions, but we would love to follow these kids, and we do. If they go deep into the playoffs, we go with them, and we're hoping somebody will give us a good excuse for a field trip.
There you have it, the 7th edition of 805 Sports Talk. And Elliot, you're talking about the playoffs, and we will have plenty of coverage for that. So make sure to check out our website and our newspapers every day. CIF playoffs are this week. The regular season is done with, and we will have plenty of updates. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and Facebook, as well as checking out our print publications every morning.
And we are going to do something brand new this year. We're going to bring you 2 editions of 805 Sports Talk live from the rodeo. Now that's coming up starting Thursday, June 2nd. Friday, June 3rd, and Sunday, the final day, June 5th, we're going to be live from the rodeo with 805 Sports Talk. Be talking to cowboys and event coordinators, and maybe even bring in the world champion clown Justin Rumford, who is back again this year. Bob Tallman wants to stop by. That's the Hall of Fame rodeo announcer. So there's a lot of people that are going to be involved in it, and we're going to be thrilled to bring you 2 live broadcasts from the 73rd annual Santa Maria Elks Rodeo. I remember because it's a year older than my oldest brother. So happy birthday, David. And so join us then for the rodeo on Friday. I hope you'll read everything about it online and in the paper after each performance, but Friday, June 3rd and Sunday, June 5th. We'll be live with 805 Sports Talk from the Elks Unocal Event Center. And I think that's going to do it for us this week on 805 Sports Talk. So join us online, in print, and back here at 805 Sports Talk. Until then, I'm Elliott Stern with Joe Bailey, Jacob Rayburn, and Kenny Cress. We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.